Welcome back to the channel. We're dealing with 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts today. We've got about a 50-degree day, so it is nice, but it is very windy. We've had a break from the 3 weeks of cloudy weather. The sun's finally starting to break through for us. We're sitting about 52 outside, sitting about 72 degrees inside the greenhouse. So what I wanted to talk about today is propagating for a profit, or propagating to just fill your entire property with a permaculture type theme. I just kind of wanted to give the process for how I'm taking these cuttings. You can see all of these large cuttings, some smaller cuttings. We had some mint cuttings, oregano cuttings, all types of little cuttings, hardwood, softwood. We've basically got a little bit of everything going on. Most of our trees we propagate right into the ground, other than our pine trees, which I did a little experiment with propagating some cuttings from those down in the northern side of our greenhouse. So the main focus of what I wanted to share today is just the simplicity of propagating into containers, or propagating into little cells there. That's a little 1.5 by 1.5 by about 3 inches deep, and it provides enough room for decent root growth. And these are all able to be plugged up, and that's how we got all of these plants started for our local farmers market. We've got about a month before we actually attend the market, but every pot I get potted up is a $5 sale for us. We have some of our smaller tomatoes and stuff, all heirloom stuff, and we've got some of our bell peppers on the warmer side of the greenhouse next to our compost. All of our smaller plants are usually $3, and we offer a deal 2 for $5 on those. And we never really have a problem selling out on all of our plants, because we like to bring useful, beneficial, and some unique stuff. And the simplicity of propagating all of these from a cutting, it is absolutely free. We don't spend anything when we're propagating other than the medium, and the medium that we use has to be loamy. It has to hold a lot of moisture also, but it can't be too dense and packed where it is compacting, or like a clay soil like we have on the greenhouse floor here. So when we're taking these cuttings, whether they're hard or soft cuttings, the difference being a second year growth or a first year growth, basically, whether it's a soft growth like this or a hard growth here like the actual woody type of cutting that we took. Now, I always like to experiment. You can see this very large hyssop cutting. Some of the growth has kind of failed, but some of the growth has really prospered. And the smaller and thinner cuttings here are much easier to grow, much faster growth off of them, because this was just basically a hardwood stick that had to put roots off, as opposed to a smaller substance that had more nodes on it. Every node where it shoots off growth that is subsurface of the soil will be able to shoot off roots for you. And when we're rooting, we don't like to use any chemicals. I will just use a little bit of aloe vera. We propagate tons of this and grow it in the house. And we like to use all natural bee honey, just raw bees honey. And we just dip our cuttings in whatever substance we use for a rooting hormone. We don't like to use the chemical hormones. Like I said, it is not a natural way to do it. It is almost foolproof, but so are the methods we use. And we use our rocks too. Just like these clay rocks, we will use an aquaponics system, and we will be able to root many cuttings very easily in a shorter amount of time, as opposed to actually putting them into soil from the beginning. Aside from propagations and cuttings, we use all these cells to start our garden. We've got mustard started here. It got a little burnt up from the sun, but you can start 90% of your veggie garden right in your cells or your flats. The only thing we really don't sow into cells or containers is our legumes and some root crops, basically. So we like to get a good start on everything and get an early start. Being in zone 5A, 4B here, we don't have a long growing season, so we got to take advantage of what we've got. And as I'm making my way down here, I want to check up on our compost. This was sitting about 100 degrees, and I had shut our system off to let the heat build in here, and I had turned our system back on, kind of cranking the water through. This pile still is not big enough to transfer enough heat to bring this up at a good rate. It's only about 1 or 2 degrees of transfer to our tank, and it slowly builds it up. But having 50 or 51 degrees outside and having a nice warm compost pile in here allows us to bank more energy, and now that the sun's coming out, we're able to store a little more. So the hot pipe is coming out at about 84 degrees. We're cranking about 84 out of the hot side of our compost pile, and it's slowly transferring through PEX tubing all the way back out, and it's coming back out about 63, 64 degrees our tank is about the same. I forgot about this tomato. It's been in here for about 2 weeks, and it was from a dying, wilting tomato, but it is the healthiest looking tomato in the greenhouse because it's been sitting in water and just slowly rooting up, and that water has not been cold enough to kill that tomato, which is pretty wild because we have freezing temperatures at night still. So aside from our tomatoes dying off, we are still actively heating this greenhouse up. Definitely hot enough in the top section to be opening our venting window. This side's sitting over 80 degrees, but that in the sun there, so that's not an accurate reading. But the sun is definitely helping us out. We just finally got a little break from all of that gloomy weather. I can physically feel the heat coming off this pile from back here. So we are definitely working this in the best way we possibly can. I've got lots of little sprouts throughout the entire greenhouse here. Some different varieties of heirloom tomatoes. These actually survived in the ground for the last 2 or 3 weeks here. Our pine tree cuttings are looking wonderful. They actually are showing signs of growth. So I'm just gonna leave those. I will be able to pull this little tarp up and kind of pop them all out without disturbing the roots too much or having to break any roots when I pull them out. So I'll be able to transplant them out for a windbreak. So we'll take a little tour of the greenhouse. Our mustard's going wild. We've got a bunch of freebie plants coming up in all of our potted fig trees here. These are just overwintering. Got some goji cuttings that I got to pop out of dormancy for me. I had taken these cuttings in the fall time. We've got lots and lots of beautiful flowers. This is arugula. I want to save the seeds from that. I wish everybody could smell this. These smell absolutely amazing. These are purple tatsoi. You can see the purple in there a little bit. Those are going to be seeding, and I will save all the seeds from that so we can grow purple tatsoi all next winter for free, basically. We've got all of our kales here, some early, some old. Some of it's going to seed, and then it will be taken over by the younger kale that we had just planted recently. All of our mustard tatsoi looking beautiful. We've got flowers coming on our strawberries in here. That is awesome. We've got lots of life popping up. This mustard and our lovage is looking wonderful too. This has really grown in the last week or two here. Our sorrel's going wild. Hopefully I'll be able to get some seed to sell from that. Got some of our blueberries, all of our radishes we need to thin here. And this is where all of our turnips were that we are currently composting for heat to heat our greenhouse. Basically a biofuel source that was growing in here, and I didn't have room and I didn't want to keep them. They all basically look like this going to seed. So I pretty well made the decision that I'm going to lay another tarp here because I need all this room for my cuttings and my plants for our market, because our little 6x12 greenhouse is absolutely packed full. I just want to thank everybody for watching these videos and checking out our heating experiments and our market gardening journey, because we're making headway here. We did a great season last season, and we hope to double our efforts this season with this larger greenhouse. We will have so much more opportunity to make some money for ourselves and reinvest it into our homestead here. So if anybody's got any questions on anything I was covering, I kind of just wanted to give a tour and give an update on what I have going on right now.